I am Deanne Rios. I am the missioner for peace and justice for the diocese, and I'm super excited to have this 50 minutes or so to introduce the task forces that have formed this year in our diocese. And I'm just going to talk for a couple minutes here at the beginning, and then the leaders of the different task forces here to share about each of them. So I started my role in January, and most of these task forces started within several months of after that. We're gonna hear from the Creation Care task force leaders, food justice, which is attached to Creation Care, but a significant work group within it, the racial justice task force, and the affordable housing task force. And kind of just big picture, maybe stating the obvious, but just kind of to get us grounded in why we do any and all of this, is that in our call as Christians, following God and Jesus' call for us to love God and love our neighbors, these different justice issues are a huge part of living into that call to love God and love our neighbors. And then more specifically, as Episcopalians, our baptismal covenant calls us to resist evil, to strive for justice and peace, to respect the dignity of every human being, and then to love our neighbors as ourselves. And so this work feels very foundational to our work in our communities and our work together in our churches and in the diocese. The task forces, the idea behind them was to gather people from a variety of churches, as many churches as were interested in having representatives, and they're not at all closed groups. They are groups that are open, and we're continuing to invite people in to be part of them in a variety of ways. But to have people from different churches across the diocese work together to figure out how to continue doing education and action and spiritual development and growth and prayer and liturgy around each of these issues. And we want to see things support work at your churches, at individual churches, and then also help churches partner with each other, work regionally, work outside their churches, outside of churches in the community, and then some things be diocesan wide. So there's a lot of space for creativity and partnering and learning from each other and supporting each other and growing ideas and initiatives in each of these areas. And I think the dream would be that there would be people, as many churches as possible, representing each of the areas. So, and it won't probably be that every church has people interested in every single area, but there's possibility for that. And so if there's people already at your church working on creation care, for instance, and you'd love some ideas and support and partnership around that, we would love, the Creation Care Task Force would love to connect with you if we're not already connected with you. And if you're not doing anything around creation care, but you care about it, or around racial justice or affordable housing or food justice, we would love to, but you want to be, then we'd love to connect. So that is our just kind of who we are, the big picture of what the task forces are. And I'm realizing I didn't plan, this is terrible, but I didn't plan for an opening prayer, which is kind of hilarious because we open all of our meetings with prayer. Does anyone want to volunteer to pray for us? I see Willie Crespo. Father Crespo, would you be willing to?
Dear Lord, we thank you for this time that we have together to become sensitive to the realities of the world around us that needs attention. We ask for your guidance and your wisdom, but more than that, the energy and the faith to be able to do the work that seems so heavy and so hard at this time. Bring us together and let our spirits join in a synergistic way so that we can build on each other's ideas and build on each other's energies and work together as your body on this earth that restores, that loves, that creates, and that lifts up everyone, especially your creation. Bless our time today, O Lord, as we gather to learn from each other, to share new ideas, and to be able to find new paths and new ways to work together to bring your kingdom on earth. Bless us, O Lord, and bless those leaders that are with us today, taking the initiative and the time to do this. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. So I'm going to put my email address in the chat, because if there's any of you at any time, like when each task force is talking, that you want to learn more or get involved or be connected, then you could just write, you can write me in the chat, or you can send me an email later and ask me to connect you to a group, and I will be happy to do that. So I am going to now turn the floor over to John Pick from St. Margaret's and Diane Lopez Hughes from the Cathedral. They co-lead our Creation Care Task Force, and they're going to tell you a little bit about that group. So Diane and John.
Sure. Well, I'll start. Good afternoon. As we speak today, we are all seeing the damaging effects of unprecedented weather on all of God's creation. And as we speak today, our Episcopal sisters and brothers, including Presiding Bishop Michael Curry, are listening and speaking at the UN Climate Conference, COP26. If we seek an opportunity to act as the hands and feet of Jesus Christ, now is more than the time to do so. The Episcopal Diocese of San Diego's Creation Care Task Force has met virtually over the past 9 months, hoping for the birth of a healthy convention resolution, more on that soon, to further elevate our work for climate justice. That work includes support for individuals, families, churches, creation care teams, and the diocese to be the change that's needed to answer this climate emergency. This work is foundational in many respects because the call to love our neighbor through all of our good intentions for peace and justice will not come to fruition if Earth is uninhabitable for most life, human and non-human.
The mission of the task force is that as followers of Jesus Christ, we empower individuals and churches in the Episcopal Diocese of San Diego to love the earth and all of God's creation, to promote environmental justice for all as part of our spiritual life and practice through education, advocacy, and action, and to reduce our footprint by living more humbly upon our common home. Our vision is that the San Diego Episcopal Diocese is a leader in the collaboration efforts throughout the country and beyond to heal our earth for the benefits of all people and of all of God's creatures. The mission is best accomplished when we encourage parishioners to act individually, in families, in their parishes, in their communities, and in the greater world. Our task force looks to provide guidance to parishes in the areas of action, advocacy, education, and food justice.
This year, partnering with multiple diocesan churches, we led book studies on Climate Church, Climate World by Jim Antal and Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Kimmerer. Partnered with Green Faith International's Faith for Climate Justice in a Day of Global Action, supported churches offering film screenings and discussions of Kiss the Ground with San Diego 350 Youth for Climate for the film I Am Greta. Offered liturgical activities and resources for the Episcopal Church's Season of Creation in September, and prepared a Creation Care resolution for this convention. St. Paul's Cathedral, St. Bartholomew's Poway, and St. Margaret's Palm Desert have hosted events at our churches, including Earth Month forums, Creation Care Sunday, and Season of Creation month-long offerings at the Cathedral, and a Be the Change Festival with community groups focused on electric cars and home electrification at St. Bart's.
The good news is there are many ways for people and congregations to get involved with the task force, either on their own or as their church in this important work. As a task force, we are a relatively small group. We are always looking for new members so that we can offer a more diverse representation of the diocese. As individuals, there are many resources available to help individuals and households to reduce their carbon footprint. For congregation, examples thus far have been the establishment of teams to look at ways that congregations could become more energy efficient and reduce waste. This is an exciting option because it not only helps God's creation, but saves operating expenses within congregations. Churches have started community gardens and have held creation care fairs. There is also the season of creation liturgy, which was used early this fall and was implemented by some of the parishes. During the past year, the task force has put together an online library of links to various resources. This is available to individuals or churches to offer guidance in their vision. Every church is different and everyone has different needs. We at the task force celebrate those differences and hope to join you moving forward in order to help repair God's creation.
I just put into the link, into the chat, a link to share with you the Episcopal Church's resources on creation care. Here's how to learn more. We are constructing a CCTF website, a Creation Care Task Force website. In the meantime, as Deanne mentioned, please contact her, and her contact information is in the chat. One of our most ambitious projects this year has been the preparation of a resolution for this convention. And I will put that in the chat too. I think I will, let's see. Sorry about that. If passed, this resolution will empower the Creation Care Task Force to more effectively support individuals, churches, and the diocese in meeting the call to care for creation. If you haven't yet seen this resolution, please take a minute to read it. And if you believe it's important, please consider asking your church's delegate to the convention to consider voting for it. Thank you. And we are done.
Okay, thank you. We're going to continue with our next task force, and at the end, we leave a for questions and answers of all the groups. So I am now going to turn it over to Kathy Wilder to talk about our food justice group.
Hey everybody, good to see all your faces here today. I have the great honor of being part of a small group of mighty people who are working towards the start of some solutions around food justice, specifically around food insecurity in our diocese. Something to share is that 1 out of 3 people in San Diego County are food insecure. Many more are impacted by food deserts, whether it be in rural places or in urban places. And this seems and is to be an essential need of people. And I think one of the things we've talked a lot about within our crew is that the role of the church is to help people feel like they're being seen and heard for their needs that they have in the immediate time. I know we saw this during the pandemic when up in a very rural place, people weren't able to travel to stores and people weren't able to access food, and food pantry activity went way up. We have so many people doing great work in our diocese already. I know St. Margaret's in the desert is doing a great, amazing work with grant money and also their own just spirit, feeding many people every week. Coming all the way out to the coast, we've got St. Mark's that is spearheading, and I see some St. Mark's folks here that are spearheading an incredible food pantry. We've got community garden programs going on. St. Albans is just an incredible program out there, and they're really an ecumenical effort, interfaith effort in reality, with a community garden for folks living in that area. Not to mention the Welcome Church program that they do. So there's a lot of energy around feeding people. You know, when you feed people and their bodies feel fed, I feel like you're feeding their spiritual selves as well. So feeding people doesn't just stop at providing food. I think one of the initiatives we're really thinking about is how do you help people know they can feed themselves, which is really the ultimate metaphor for our work as Christians and our work as spiritual members of our community. So we've been thinking a lot about how we can support churches to have this role in their community even more so. How do we think about doing that? And what we realize is, we just really can't do that on our own. That's impossible, right? So that's part of being a congregation of people in the world. So a really exciting thing that we're looking at right now is partnering with a gentleman who works with the extension learning through UCSD. He's doing hydroponic gardening. And that maybe sounds complicated, but if you've ever seen hydroponic gardening, it's really cool because you can do it in an apartment. You can do it when you have very little space. And so imagining that he's bringing to the table his own funding and materials and expertise. And what we bring to the table as a collective is people who are energized around finding a way for people to be fed in their hearts and in their bodies, and how the church can be a conduit, a bridge for this kind of work. So right now we as a committee are working on figuring out which churches are a good fit for this connection in our diocese. So we're working really hard to talk with folks, make sure that it's an appropriate fit. So there's going to be two ways to get connected. One will be maybe you're a church that's just got the energy and space for providing storage and space for classes where people could learn about hydroponic gardening. You might be a church that has some space and you would like to build a hydroponic system at your site, and you could grow food to feed your pantry with fresh greens is kind of how you start, because that's like the high success rate gardening and the hydroponics. It's good to start with something you can do. So that can be really helpful for folks who are not able to access fresh vegetables and food. But the real key is that there's a learning component and a component where things can be grown, and also partnering with people to look at the funding side of getting equipment and things that can sustain the efforts. So not just saying, hey, maybe you should try this at your house, but also having like someone who could teach and someone who could follow up with some consultation. So we're really excited about this possibility. Also looking at partnering with San Diego City College and their ag department and seeing if there's some energy there around providing some teachers. And so we are applying for a diocesan-wide UTO grant, United Think Offering grant, to include as many churches that are interested. So if it's something that you think your church might be interested in, and in reality, any kind of effort that's kind of in this spirit, if your church or ministry is excited about doing this kind of work, we'd love to have you, just even your ideas as a part of our crew. We are open to that. We have high energy about this, and really are excited about the potential of putting all of our work together and doing something really powerful across the diocese. And know that that's the way you really make a change. And I also love that it really increases and expands the way that churches are caring for their communities. And also same with, I'm here at Camp Stevens. I didn't even say that. I'm up at Camp Stevens in Julian. And that's something that we care deeply about too, and reaching out to our community in every way we can. And we know this is a universal way that we can do that. So we're pretty excited about the possibilities, and are really looking forward to what that looks like. The grant's not due till February, so right now we're in the gathering of people phase. So again, if you're interested or have questions about food justice work or input about that, we would love to talk to you at any point in time. Trying to think if there's anything else to cover with this right now. You can reach out to Deanne, of course, but I will also put my information in the chat. I know sometimes probably Deanne gets a lot of email, I'm guessing. So if you want to reach out to me specifically about anything regarding this work, this grant, or anything in food justice, I'd be happy to take your email and add you to our list of people interested.
Great.
Kathy, could I just throw something
Definitely.
in there really quick, kind of on a very related note? As Kathy had mentioned, at St. Margaret's, we have a fairly large food pantry, which has been there for a number of years. We serve between 300 and 500 families a week, and it went up to over 700 during the height of the pandemic. On any given week, we accumulate almost in the area, it's unbelievable, almost 1,000 pounds of green waste through spoilage that has come into us that way or whatever, that's been going into the landfill. As of this coming week, we formed a partnership with a group called Desert Compost. And as of Wednesday, we are going to be running the first community compost site in the entire desert. And instead of 1,000 pounds of stuff going into the garbage every week, it's going to be creating fertile soil that we're then going to be using in a community garden where our clients that come and pick up food are going to be able to use and to grow vegetables and fruit and such. So it's just a great example of how between collaboration and partnerships and just good ideas, people can do good stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, what John's doing out there right now is amazing. I just want to give him a big high five because they're always bringing some great things, great ideas. So St. Margaret's is a great example. I think also, if you want to find out how to do it, they're really making it work well. And I do want to give a pitch. If anybody wants to compost at their church, Camp Stevens would love to help you do that. So give us a call.
It's amazing how many people, when we started this, said, I didn't know you could compost in the desert.
Cool. All right, so I think we're gonna move to our third group, and I'm actually gonna share a little bit about that. It's the Racial Justice Task Force, and we have one of the kind of foundational events or pieces to this work has been Sacred Ground, and the fact that so many churches had groups go through Sacred Ground, and that was kind of a revolving, there's groups still going through it. But it's a while back, we had about 20 churches and about 600 people that had gone through it, and we're working on updating those numbers because those are outdated now. But whatever the exact numbers are, we have people in our diocese go through that curriculum and really love it and be impacted by it and be asking the question, what's next? How do we both continue to learn and grow in this anti-racism work, and how do we put what we're learning into action? And so the Racial Justice Task Force is tasked with, among others at individual churches who are work, to be a support and leader in helping with that and helping churches figure out next steps and educational resources, et cetera. And the way that we've been structured is that right now what we're doing is that we have an education work group that is really strong and has done work and continues to do work to vet resources and come up with kind of plug and play. That's Jill Henderson. I don't know if she's on the call, but she talks about plug and play, where they will come up with a film and then the questions. So you could do a film screening and they'll have the questions and they'll have recommendations on how to make it all happen, or a book study and have questions so that you could do a book study and they've got it ready to go, or living room conversation. You watch something and have a conversation. And so they're doing some work so that if any of our churches, any of you or others from your churches are interested in resources like that, please be in touch with us, with me, and I'll connect you to them. Or I know that Therese Carmona is on the call, and she co-leads that education work group for the Racial Justice Task Force. And Jill Henderson, contact, Jill. And then the other piece of, besides education, that needs to be ongoing is action. And kind of, we think about spiritual work around all of these justice areas, education work, and action, sort of those three as our pillars. And the spiritual work can be personal, where we're, learning and growing in our personal faith journeys, with God, in following Jesus, and integrating justice into our lives, but also providing liturgy and prayer and other things that churches can use in services or as communities. And so I feel like we haven't had, we have a bunch of ideas about action, but that's kind of, we feel like we haven't gotten that far because we played with some different ideas and then decided not to do them. And so the one thing that is of interest to us is using theater and using the arts in education for racial justice. And so we've done some work around that, and we'll be sharing some opportunities to come to productions where we can have interactive theater, where you interact and learn about what's happening in terms of racial dynamics in a play. A fun thing. And then also, we are working on diversifying our team more. So we welcome more representatives from additional churches, but we especially are hoping and praying for more diversity in our team. And so if you have any ideas about that, please let us know. So that's kind of an overview of the Racial Justice Task Force. And I think I'm going to turn it over now to our Affordable Housing Task Force, and Jessica Ripper leads that. Jessica, turn it over to you.
Thanks, Dan. So I'm Jessica Ripper. I attend Good Sam up in UTC. So hello and welcome to anyone who is familiar with the Good Samaritan, I actually wanted to pause for a minute, and especially I'm looking at us all sitting here and seeing whose faces are on the screen. And I want to pause for a minute and just ask everybody to take a few seconds, close your eyes, and think about what does home mean to you? It looks like so many of us are sitting in our homes right now. What does it look like? Who's there with you? What do you see, hear, smell, taste? What are the memories that you have of home? So you can open your eyes. If you're like me, the word home, brings up family and friends, and as a kid climbing trees in the backyard and trick-or-treating on Halloween and sledding in the hill behind my house, having friends for dinner, watching a baseball game, all those things. It's the pictures on the wall, it's the furniture that my grandparents had, it's all those things that make you that give you that personal feeling, and really resonates with all of us. And when we think about home, I think we all have different experiences. So I'm guessing that not everybody went sledding, and not everybody had furniture from their grandparents. We all had different life experiences. And I think one of the things that I think about in terms of home and the Affordable Housing Task Force is, we live in a time and place where home is actually not affordable to so many folks. And so, many people have had a different experience than the one I described for myself. And I'm guessing that there's a range of experiences in this group here around, what home means to them, and whether it has positive, it comes with positive memories, or whether it comes with some sadness and regrets, or a combination of all those things, because many of us have lived long and rich lives, and have, and have a lot of memories to bring with us. And part of the reason I wanted to start here is because when we talk about the Affordable Housing Task Force, what we're really talking about is homes, and the fact that so many, as I said, so many folks don't have a home in which they can live, and not just necessarily live safely and securely and affordably. And I'm not talking just about people who, may be living unhoused on the streets, but I'm talking about the many, many people in our community who, don't have what I would call a safe place to call home because it doesn't feel secure. And not knowing who is in the room, like if that feeling, if you share that feeling, I hope that this is something that resonates with you, and that, we can learn from you and your experience. So, I don't want to flood you with statistics, and I will get into the work of the task force in just a minute, but just to pause and think about why we're talking about housing and home. So for folks who aren't necessarily, following along in all the conversations that are happening around housing, there are 132,000 households in San Diego County that are considered low income, and therefore don't have access to an affordable home. Included in that group, 4 in 5 households that are considered extremely low income pay more than half of their income on rents or on housing, compared to 1% of those that are even moderate income. And I think about what we were just hearing from some of the other groups that spoke around racial justice, around food justice, around creation care. And, so much of that actually comes back to home in many different ways. So there are lots of connections between these things, because if you can't afford a home, you might not be able to, you probably also are struggling to afford food. You may be traveling long distances to work, to childcare, to et cetera. And there's an issue, there's climate impact in that. And then of course there's the issue of segregation, segregation caused by a lot of our affordable housing, or by a lot of our housing laws over the years. And for those of you who are in sacred ground, you may be familiar with the term redlining, around how our neighborhoods were structured. So I think of all these things and how home hits on all of them. And then I think about the work that, the really critical work that we as people of faith can possibly do together around housing and home. And so I wanted to share with you a little bit about the task force and its purpose. So I'm going to pause because I just threw a lot of information at you, and say that our purpose, given all of that, given all of those facts, and given all the context around us, that the purpose of this group is really to demonstrate our love for our neighbors by helping to expand the supply of quality, affordable homes within the diocese. And that can look a lot of different ways. Part of what we're talking about as a group is, and we're in various stages on various components of this. One is around education and advancing the understanding of the need for homes and how we as people of faith can contribute to the solution. So it's really around education, helping people to understand what's the need, what's the range of solutions that are possible, and what are ways that faith communities can engage in that process. The second thing is we're looking at how we can advocate individually and collectively for housing justice. So, as I said, you may be familiar with issues relating to redlining that have resulted in inequities in our communities. And so how can we advocate for, bringing more balance into our communities so that all of our communities are places where people can find quality, affordable homes, near good schools, where you're not living in a food desert, you're not traveling a long way and contributing to, climate degradation, and where there aren't differences based on the color of your skin or your faith background even. The other thing we've thought about is what's the role of us potentially in terms of donating financial or real estate assets to meet these needs? And then last, how do we develop underutilized church land for affordable housing? So there may be faith communities that have a piece of land that, is really not used to, to its highest and best use in terms of what it can do for both the faith community itself, as potentially a revenue generator, and for the community at large in terms of what that brings back and how we can bring more people into that vision of quality affordable homes. So the focus of the committee is really on those 4 areas. So education, advocacy, and then how do we use land either individually, I guess it's really 3, individually or collectively in terms of church land. And that can be for things like, for different groups. It could be, in some cases, it could be, and it can look a lot of different ways. I think it could be, homes for seniors who are living on fixed incomes. It could be, homes for families. It could be, homes for people who are unhoused, who are experiencing homelessness in our communities. It could be homes for youth transitioning out of the foster care system. And then we've also talked about homes, the difficulty of finding homes for university students and clergy. So, there's such a high level of need. It impacts almost every single group within, almost every single group within society. So I think that, we're really trying to tackle a lot of different things. And as a group, some of the things that we're talking about in addition to the education is, where faith communities, where different parishes are interested in exploring the possibility of what can we do as a group, and or what can we do with the real estate assets that we have, that we're putting together resources to help foster those conversations and to help churches, different parishes and parish groups explore the potential of what they might possibly be able to do. A couple other things that I wanted to share really briefly is, in some ways, the timing of this conversation couldn't be more, I think the timing of this conversation is because we're all aware of, many of us are aware of the need, but the timing of this conversation is also really interested because we're not alone. One of the things that in my work, I actually do work in affordable housing, on affordable housing and homelessness. And, it's, the role of faith communities in this process is really, really front and center right now in a lot of different ways. It's been the focus of research at the university level in terms of mapping the potential of faith-based housing development. It's been the subject of state legislation to allow churches to free up how they utilize their land. And it's also been the subject of a lot of different projects that are popping up, in California and all over the country. There are groups in LA, and there are groups, there are other groups here in San Diego, and across the spectrum throughout California who are really looking at this issue. And and how we can work together, either as a diocese or as part of a broader network of people in terms of addressing, helping to meet that need for home for more people in our communities. And so I think the big takeaway from this is, if you're interested in being part of the task force, if you're interested in learning more about in building community, I think is probably the best way to say it, because the home is the structure, but it's really the home is the basis for being in community with each other. And so if you're interested in exploring those ideas, we encourage you to join us. And then we're going to continue to do our own education, and then moving out into the world into external education and developing those resources. The other thing is if you are or know someone who is part of your parish who has a background in urban planning, real estate development, property management, social services, any of those things that, has some kind of focus on housing and home, we would love to hear from them and have them be part of the group. And then lastly, I want to just share an exciting thing that some of us are taking part in next week, which is Trinity Church Wall Street, not next week, 2 weeks from now, Trinity Church Wall Street. This is something that is, we've been invited to join a conversation with Trinity Church Wall Street to further explore these ideas together. So several of us, including myself and Bishop Susan, are going to be attending, that conference, and meeting people from other places in the country who are also thinking about these issues. So with that, I'm going to leave it there and turn it back to Deanne to open it up for questions.
Great, thank you, Jessica. Before I open it up for questions, I had one just kind of general request or announcement, and that is that we are always looking for stories about what is happening at your churches, both to share and also so that we in the task forces know what's happening and can connect you all to each other and learn from you and celebrate with you. So for instance, the fact that St. Margaret's has a composting program that's brand new, if another church wants to start one and doesn't know that there's already one running, we wouldn't be able to learn from that. And so, but now we can. So if you're doing, and even if you think it's small and you're just getting started, or if you've been doing it for a long time, and no matter at what stage, we would know what you're doing. And some of us know what's happening at churches. We'll be doing outreach to you in different ways, but you can also always feel free to just reach out and say, hey, we're doing this thing, we're struggling, or it's going well, or we'd love to celebrate it, or even you'd be willing to article and share it, and we can put it in the diocesan e-blast. So we would just like to know and know that that's an open invitation to you. So now we have a few minutes for questions and answers, and if you have a question, if you could just raise your hand. I think you can unmute yourself. If you can't, I'm not running that portion of this. So, and just let us know who you're addressing it to. It could be to any of the people who've spoken or about any of the task forces that have been shared about. It could be comments too. It could be comments, questions, any of that.
Hi, I'm Susan Newland from Grace Church in San Marcos. I have a question possibly for Jessica, any others of you that could give us guidance. Our church sits on a 3-acre lot. 2/5 of it, 3/5 of it, 4/5 of it probably are vacant. I mean, our church sits on a little parcel of a very large lot. And we have had people from the diocese come out and essentially advise us that it would be very difficult to develop it because of all the zoning and changing and wiring and piping and everything else that's going to need to be done. So other ideas would be welcome that would serve the community. It would have been wonderful to get the idea of how to develop affordable housing on that land, but nothing was forthcoming at that time. Maybe some of you have some ideas. We've had ideas for developing a preschool that might be of service to the community, and we're looking into that right now. We talked about community gardens, and then we're told about how hard that is to manage because people were reselling the garden lots and not really using them for the intended use of providing food to the community. So we're kind of wondering, it's sitting there growing weeds and accepting a lot of people that want to come and dump their waste on it right now. So other ideas would be more than welcome.
This is Bishop Susan, and Susan, thank you for bringing that up. I actually, since I visited you just last Sunday at Grace.
Yeah, thank you for that visit. It was wonderful.
Yeah, and got to see how beautifully you fixed up your grounds and everything. I had some initial discussions with Father Frank about that. And I think that he's got some really good ideas, and we'd be glad to talk with you further and with your vestry about some of the potential for that land. I think that there certainly is some potential.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I'm throwing forth some of the ideas that I've been talking to him about. So I'm sort of aware of some of them, but didn't know what kind of, I mean, and he sort of asked me to do some marketing studies, but I'm still floundering because I'm not really sure exactly where to focus right now. So I would appreciate some guidance, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. And I'll talk with Jessica about that, and we'll be glad to put it on our list.
Okay.
to
Okay.
work.
Well, you have my name in the registry here. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else have comments or questions?
Mary Ann Ekman from St. Margaret's. Sorry, I was a little bit late getting into the meeting, so if I missed something that already happened, I'll apologize in advance. I'm part of a group that's looking into restorative justice for people who are wrongfully imprisoned. And we're just beginning this journey. It's kind of Sacred Ground Step 2. We've got 5 different groups that are exploring different aspects of racial and social justice. So if anybody's got that on their radar in any other communities in the parish, in the diocese, I would love to chat with them. I think I've been appointed the head of this committee, although I just volunteered to be on it, but somehow that seems to happen too quick to volunteer. Anyway, that's all I have. If anyone else has is heading that direction, I'd love to collaborate, work together. So that's all I have. Thank you.
I guess everything I know about restorative justice, I love. I haven't heard us talk about specifically focusing on that, but it's just good to bring it up because it might be that there are ways that we can connect with that. Is that happening a group at your church or a group in your community, or?
It's a group at St. Margaret's. They got some funding from the church nationwide to proceed on with phase 2 of Sacred Ground, basically. And so we've got a number of different groups whose names I forget some now, but anyway, the restorative justice was one that piqued my interest because I know that there are a lot of imprisoned people that shouldn't be in prison for petty crimes that most white folks don't get in prison for. So that's where we're headed with it. I've got a legal background, but know not a lot about this area, but I'm passionate about doing something about it. So
Marianne, could you share your contact information in the chat?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Just phone number is an email.
Whatever you want to share. I think there may be folks in our Sacred Ground group, Sacred Ground in Action, at the cathedral that might be interested.
Okay, great. Thanks, Diane. I will put that in the chat if I know how to do that.
Well, I could probably get it from John, but other people might be interested.
Oh, okay. Here, I'll give it a try.
Okay.
And Marianne, Jessica wrote in the chat that the National Conflict Resolution Center, which her husband actually works there, David J., youth justice.
Okay.
So we could maybe connect you to that too.
Okay.
I believe Troy had his hand up.
Okay, Troy.
Hi, Marianne. We've not met, but we're fellow desert dwellers, I guess. Somewhat adjacent to the restorative justice around incarceration, but it might be of interest. The Coachella Valley has, due to its extensive, as you know, presence of tribal lands, a sort of a new upswell in interest in restorative justice programs around the Native American, American Indian populations, in particular with the new cultural center going up in downtown Palm Springs. There is a committee at the state level, which I think has a local branch around restorative justice toward tribes. So again, it's not strictly speaking what your focus is, but it might be interesting, and it certainly is locally relevant.
Well, in a Southern Poverty Law Center, there are groups nationwide that I know that are very involved in this too. So, there are resources to call upon. It's just I kind of wanted to focus more locally. Thank you, Troy. That's a great help.
And then St. James is having Father Greg Boyle for a weekend in early 2022, and he'll probably address restorative justice. That is a note from Donna Turner in the.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. This is very helpful. I did put my contact in the chat, so.
I have another question. Will the program with Greg Boyle be available on Zoom, or will it be videoed in case there are other folks who might be interested? Donna, I guess that question is for you.
Where's Donna? Is she muted? We're not hearing you if you're talking. Okay. I don't know where she. Oh, Donna, we can't hear you. You're not muted, but we can't hear you. I feel like that happens every once in a while. I don't know why. Can everyone else hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. Donna, sorry, we can't hear you.
It just sounds like a way to get more people involved.
Okay.
Greg Boyle is
I
pretty
got it now.
powerful.
Can you hear me now?
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
We will be putting all that information on our Facebook page when we know it. It's still off in the future and it's not settled, I don't think. I'm not aware.
Could you
but
share? Could you share it with the diocese, because I know I'm not on Facebook.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. We will.
And maybe they could. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
That actually brings up another just kind of something to be thinking about is, and Chris Tumulty is our director of communication. And so, sometimes we've had actually yesterday a conversation about this, is when it might make sense to share things happening at your church more broadly, and then how to do that. But I think that's something for all of us to be thinking about, so that if you have an in-person event that the church might be interested in, and you're up for this, and if you don't already do so, to invite them to come. And if it's online and you're doing a film screening or have a speaker or something, and it's virtual and people from across the diocese could participate if they're interested, that's something that could be shared through the diocesan e-news. And so we've been doing that, I think maybe more than we used to. I don't know, because I haven't been around this exact work forever, but there's definitely been times this year that multiple churches have partnered to do a book study or a film or a speaker or some kind of education or action item. We've shared it more broadly, and I think it's a great partnering opportunity, both to make it easier so that one church isn't carrying all the load, and also just so more people benefit. So just, if you're not already, we encourage you to think about that. How can churches either right around you or from across the diocese either help you, like we help each other, and or benefit from what we're already doing. All right, it is 2:55, and so we could officially sign off so that people have a short break before the 3 o'clock workshops. If there is one quick final question, feel free to ask, but otherwise I think we will sign off.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is Jessica. It's not so much a question, but I also think that there's an opportunity here to be thinking about how some of the intersections of some of these groups as well, so, I think that, depending on where you are and what you're trying to accomplish, trying to do, for example, trying to do a community garden of some type and trying to do affordable housing aren't necessarily, exclusive, right? Mutually exclusive. So I think, thinking about what we could do together too might also be really helpful. How does creation care and racial justice and housing justice and food justice come together in a place might be an interesting way to think about things. It's not always possible to do everything, but it can be good and help us break out of thinking, where it's just a single topic thinking. So that just might be food for thought.
Yes, 100%. We've talked about intersectionality some, but there's a lot of space to grow in crossing over and working together across multiple issues. So thank you for raising that. All
And
right.
as we see
Go ahead.
more climate, I'm sorry, as we see more climate migrants, we may be seeing a lot more need for housing and so many other resources as well. So I think that issue of intersectionality is really important. And maybe we could have a big meeting of all the task force at some point in time. That'd be cool.
Yeah, and to make sure, yeah, thank you. And so also to make sure Troy Elder is on the call, and he's our commissioner for migrant ministries, and that's the fifth area that is represented by a task. So he's going to have a separate workshop to focus on the work that they're doing, but I wanted to know, of course, for migrant ministries, if you don't know that and want to be involved with that. They're doing some great work. So
thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. We are at our time. It's wonderful to see all of your faces. I know many of you, and some of you I do not know. So I hope if you're drawn to this work, either at your own churches or want to get involved at a diocesan level, that you will let us know so we can just share more about what's happening and see where you might want to plug in, or we can encourage you at your own church. So thank you again. It's great to see all of you today.